Hello, boys and girls and children of all ages. Fat Bastard Wannabe Buddha coming at you today. Today I'm going to basically be talking about conspiracy. Syria, and an interesting piece by Greg Palast posted on his in Vice magazine, I think it was, but it's also on his webpage itself, which hopefully I'll link to, concerning the smoking gun document that finally points out that is by Larry Summers and Timmy Geithner, how the United States basically pressured the World Trade Organizations in order to lower financial regulations and certain banking discrepancies after we got rid of Glass-Steagall in the European market, that basically paved the way for financial speculation by our little toadies and Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Citi, Chase, and the rest of those boys who went over there and helped load those countries up with debt and help implode their countries and make them a basket case, removing a competitor for us. Yes, that's a conspiracy theory. It's similar to the PNAC project or the Project of New America, and also the Grand Chessboard by Brzezinski. And also Samuel Huntington's, the main competitors for American hegemony is going to be the BRIC nation, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, maybe a solid European Union, and the rising countervailing force of Islam that doesn't exactly go along with the new American century. So all those things tie together. It's one big giant conspiracy theory. The reason I'm sort of flippant about this, one of my little friends, my little brother, pointed out, and when I was rambling the other day about how I didn't exactly believe Assad would gas his own people at the same day, he brought in UN inspectors to look and see if he had gassed them previously, even though the UN now says the previous attack probably came from the rebels themselves. I couldn't believe that Assad would have the UN on the same day, less than 15 miles away, gassing his own people. So it always rubbed me suspicious, and I made a comment to my little brother about, hey, I don't exactly buy it. And he made a flippant remark, oh, the conspiracy runs deep, and he quoted the New York Times article to me. I like the New York Times. I read the New York Times. But I accept that the New York Times is a piece of agitprop for the dominant powers that be. I assume every piece of information that I read has an agenda. And its agenda, whether that be corporate America's agenda, or if I read Russian TV, RT, or if I read a press and Iranian press TV, or Al Jazeera, or any of BBC, I assume every one of those people have a monkey in the fight, have an axe to grind. So I take it with a grain of salt. And the New York Times, especially after Judith Miller and a whole bunch of other things, has shown a willingness to be a house organ for the military-industrial complex of America. But if you talk this way in America, that if you get out there and say, no, there isn't a great organizing conspiracy, that there is just mutually aligned interests of people pursuing these interests in order to maintain their privilege, prestige, and hegemony, that is considered off grounds. You consider conspiratorial. And it's a way of closing down debate. Do I buy every conspiracy? No. But I do think that certain interests are acting in their own self-interest. And I think it's readily available, like you take the PNAC document showed perfectly well that there was an organized conspiracy of how for America to retain its hegemony, especially in the Mideast, and how it would deal with rising competitors, so its national economic, political, and social agendas. And its leading competitors are the BRIC nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China. It also would have been the European Union, and it also would have been Islam. Those are serious impediments to America's global dominance, or continuing being the top dog on the totem pole. And America wants this. America's corporations want this. Americans' elite want this. Heck, the American citizens probably want this too. They like being the top dog. So they take interest, they do certain things that further this goal of maintaining their power, their privilege, and their prestige. Is it a great conspiracy that the banking organizations lobby Congress to get laws enacted to lower regulations on them and increase their profits and their power? No, it's not a great conspiracy. That's naturally what they do. And to think otherwise is rather childish, rather superficial. Doesn't mean that you buy every single conspiracy, no. But the short-circuit debates, the short-circuit topics with just a broad brush of, hey, that's conspiracy thinking, is a cheap intellectual tactics. I'm quite aware that I have a certain way of thinking. I consider myself an intuitive thinker. I take in a massive amount of information from a myriad of sources, and I condense it to an idea, a concept, or a theory, and then I regurgitate this. 99 times out of 100, it's absolute garbage. I admit this. I have no qualms admitting this. But every once in a while, amongst all the you-know-what, you find a pony. And my strain of thinking, gut thinking, or intuitive thinking, I think is valid. I think it's a good way as long as it's within reservations, within guidelines, that you're cognitive of the fact that you do have liabilities. And so there's nothing wrong with conspiracy thinking. Unfortunately, a large portion of the world does operate in some manner or form of conspiracy. And most people accept conspiracy. It's just official conspiracy, proper conspiracy. When the government sanctions a conspiracy that there was a cabal of interests in the Mideast that decided to do X, we say, okie dokie, that's cool and dandy. Or there's international conspiracy of, people in the middle of southern Asia thinking about Marx and Lenin and everybody else that have no conception of who these people were. We buy it because the government tells us this, that this is the way it is. Or in the middle of Latin America, that these people are a bunch of Marxists, communists, Maoists, and everything else. Okay, I don't think those peasants were. But what I suggest to people is, when they go out into the world, gather as much information as they can from as many sources as they possibly can. I love the New York Times. I read the New York Times constantly. But I consider it a house organ for the military-industrial complex in America. It is a corporate house organ. I consider Russia Today a Russian house organ. I consider Press TV a house organ for Iran. Al Jazeera is a house organ for Qatar, and to a varying degree limited, not as much as it once was, to Saudi Arabia, but they've changed that. I consider the BBC to be a house organ. So doesn't mean that they're always wrong, but you should go into any information with a high degree of skepticism. So, do I believe, like the Greg Palast memo suggests, that Timmy Geithner and Lawrence Summers and the boys changed the banking regulations in order to crush the European Union in the ways of continuing American hegemony? I think they're smart enough to think that, but I think the reason it was mainly done is because their rich benefactors wanted to make a buck, make a quick buck, get rich quick. It just had the benefits that it created, this southern-northern imbalance that was always going to exist in the European Union, which highly benefits American hegemony. Do I think that maybe some of the rebels got some weapons from other things? Maybe Bonchar Bush himself, Banyar Bush, the little Saudi Arabian prince? My gut tells me, yeah. Why do I think that? Because I think America, Saudi Arabia, and Israel wants to break up the Syrian, Hezbollah, and Iranian coalition. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? No, people are going to die. People are suffering because of these actions that people take. Does it mean that I'm right on this? I think I am. I'm pretty close to the truth on this one, I think. But I'm not positive. And I will weigh evidence that counters my thing and change and alter my thinking if it is presented. So when you hear people say conspiracy or other things like that, don't exactly dismiss it out of hand. Some of it's true. Doesn't mean I believe in gray aliens, but I might be wrong. This is the Fat Bastard. That's my thought for the day. Please like, subscribe, favorite, or however you do these things. I welcome any criticism or how I should do this better. I actually am not going to black this one out. I'm actually going to leave it in color because I'm trying to get comfortable doing this. So have a good day. Thank you for your support. Thank you. Thanks for listening.